Okay.
Hello,
I know
everyone.
it's strange.
Hi, Shlomi. Hello,
Hi.
everyone joining us as we speak. We have already 74 people, and the numbers are going up. And I would say good evening to Shlomi in the north of Israel, in the northern border of Israel. And before I even introduce you and introduce our event, and I saw that you are opening your umbrella, if you can, Shlomi, and thank you so much for joining us and giving us the time. If you can just tell me, how was your day today?
Oh, it starts at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the first report was the Hezbollah fired rockets of one of the Israelis' base, the IDF base in Balint. Later on, we have here the remote vehicle, remote pilot vehicles that attacks here in Kiryat Shmona. I can show you the view here. This is
This
Kiryat
is the
Shmona.
north of Israel, Kiryat Shmona,
Yes.
really up at the north, where
Yes, this is in the north.
these days, so it's evening time in Israel, and these days
Yes.
rockets from Hezbollah are targeted towards the northern part of
But
Israel.
I have to explain that it's a strange view because this is Kiryat Shmona, and the citizens were evacuated from here at the beginning of the war. So it's like a movie, like Hollywood movie, when all the citizens were disappeared. It's only houses, it's lights, street lights, and that's it. And one more thing that it was very strange. Of my story that I did here in Kiryat Shmona, the buses working. They gave the service for no one. I saw the buses all over the streets, but no citizens that need this service. So
Right,
it
it
really
starts
was
raining
safe.
now.
And I guess it started raining. It was tough day, raining day yesterday. And I asked the bus driver, "What are you doing? Because nobody's here." And he says, "This is my job. I have to continue to give the service to the citizens, but no citizens are here."
Right. So we're really looking at an empty city. And these days, you basically moved up to the north. You have a place of your own there because you're reporting to Channel 13, one of the big channels in Israel, on the war from the north. So let me introduce you to those who just joined us, and we can start our event. So welcome everyone to the Pozez event with Israeli journalist Shlomi Eldar. First, I want to thank the Pozez family for their generosity of making this event possible. This is in memory of Shaol and Luis Pozez, and I want to thank the family for their support in the center and the things we do. I also want to thank Jackie Schmidt for coordinating this event. Originally, this lecture was supposed to be yet another event in my course on modern Israel, and I'm always happy to host Shlomi Eldar in a conversation on his film Precious Life and Gaza and Israel. And so the first time we talked about it, it was really a pretty peaceful time, and we're about to talk on a film that was done more than a decade ago. And then the war started, and here we are, Shlomi back again on his feet, covering war in the north like he did in the past with Gaza. I just want to say a warning that we may need to interrupt the conversation if the sirens will go off in Israel because of rockets or any bombing coming from the north, or if Shlomi will be called to be on air. So we're taking into consideration this situation, and we'll show flexibility and we'll cope with things as they come. Now, after this introduction, let me introduce Shlomi Eldar. Shlomi Eldar is a prominent journalist in Israel, covering the Gaza Strip for more than 3 decades going in and out of Gaza Strip until 2007 when Hamas came to power. He's also a documentary filmmaker and made the film Precious Life that many of you watched, and Foreign Land, and lately the film on Anat. He's also, as you can understand, pretty prolific. He's the author of 2 books that came on Gaza, one on the Hamas and one on Gaza City. And probably these days, and I think, Shlomi, you did not imagine it, you are the person of the hour. You're the person who everybody wants to talk to. I think that you kind of thought that the topic that you were passionate about for so many decades is really something of the past in a way that nobody really wants to hear anymore about Gaza. Yes. And then the massacre of October 7th happened and the war started, and you found yourself once again covering the war on the other side of Israel and being asked so many questions about Gaza. So I want to start with the personal. If you can describe how your life changed since October 7th. I know you have one of your sons in Scotland, maybe facing another war because he feels not very much welcome there. And you're in the north of Israel. The rest of your family is in Tel Aviv. So if you can share a little bit about that.
Yes, I would like to start with, I've been asked to give a course in Haifa University 2-3 months ago about Hamas. And I started to plan my school, my lectures. And I said to myself, who cares about Hamas now? Because it seems like it's an old story, because I think that Hamas, nobody didn't really try to understand something about Hamas. We've been in another place. We were dealing with the Judaic problem in Israel and the Israeli society. And I started to prepare my lectures, and then starts a war on October 7th. Me and my family sat in our room, in our balcony, and my wife came with white faces and said, I talked now to one of my friends, and he told me that there are 900 murders in Israel. 900 murders. And I was shocked because all the time I covered the terror attacks in Israel. One of it was in the second Intifada. I remember the Dolphinarium attack in 2001, and the number of the casualties of the murders were about 22. Then another terror attack in Passover in 2001, also in Netanya, Park Hotel. The casualties, the victims were about 32 murders killed by suicide bomber. And now, and remember these attacks all the time. It one that every Israeli will never has a memory of this blast. And on October 7th, we started to count 900. And now we're counting 1,500 murders and 2039 kidnaps, hostages in Gaza.
And Shlomi, I want to ask you, as you kind of started and realized, like all Israelis in the world, actually, the numbers of casualties, of dead people, of victims, were you kind of thinking to yourself, I cannot believe it, or, yeah, of course, I get it?
I get it, and because I have an experience with the Gaza Strip and Hamas leaders, that I think that all the time the military group used to tell me, one day you feel how the earth will shake on your feet and will burn Israel. And all the time I was laughing because you're a terrorist. We are a strong city. We are a strong country. We have airplane. We have tanks. We have everything. And I think this was the first thought that I was thinking about. Well, they did. They succeeded to do what they promised a few years ago. And the second thought that I went in my mind was about Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas in Gaza. What the hell did he think to himself? Because he knew that Israel will tell you. Will Israel not forgive him never? Not for him, not Gaza Strip. And the Gaza Strip, the
Shlomi,
citizens of Gaza.
can you repeat the last sentence because there was some kind of interruption? So you said Sinwar, because that's just very interesting for me. What the hell were you thinking?
Yes. And I know for sure, I think every Israeli and every citizen in Gaza knew for sure that Israel retaliates. And they are the victims of Hamas also. And I know that Israel will retaliate very strong to destroy Hamas. It's not a game anymore. It's not a power game between the balance game between Gaza and Israel, between Hamas and Israel. This is something else, something big, that Israel must eliminate the Hamas from Gaza.
Okay, and
it was the beginning, and I said after a few weeks later, I went to see the footage that IDF edited for the journalists, the foreign journalists, to show the massacres in Israel. And I think that I didn't want to see it before because I couldn't see the videos that Hamas releases there. But I think it's my job, and I wanted to see it to understand more. And I went to the IDF spokesman quarter with another foreigner journalist, and it was 15 minutes footage that's been taken from bodies camera that were found under the terrorist, and it's something that I couldn't imagine for myself, never. And I think in all my career, I've never used the word Holocaust. I didn't compare anything to the Holocaust. I was angry when someone here in Israel, anyone, tried to compare something to the Holocaust. And the first thing that I thought to myself, this is like the Holocaust. Bodies, a lot of bodies, babies, massacres of families. And one thing that I will not forget for all of my life, a truck full of burned bodies. So that's what Hamas did to my people. And I must tell you my feeling, because a few minutes after I went off from the screening, I had a phone call from the IDF radio, and it's a very popular radio in Israel. And they started to try to interview me about Hamas, something else. And the first reaction was I started to cry. I started to cry because a human being can't see something like that. The cruelty of killing babies and kidnapping hostages. Hamas handled a 9 months baby, is now 10 months baby. And it's unbelievable. So the first thing that I did, I took the Israeli flag that I have in my house, a flag that I purchased a few years ago when the disengagement from Gaza, I saw a Palestinian child that tried to burn the Israeli flags, and I purchased it for him before he started to burn it. And I took this flag and put it in my balcony. I think that over time, I knew that I'm Israeli. I'm an Israeli, patriotic Israeli, but the first time I think that I feel deep in my heart that I'm an Israeli.
So the events really, as I hear you speak, kind of shifted you from the position of a journalist to, well, I'm first and foremost an Israeli, and my people were brutally attacked.
Yes, brutally murdered, brutally butchered by terrorists, by not human beings. And all the time I've been asked by, because I'm covering Gaza Strip for many, many years, and I all the time believe that we can't find any consideration with Hamas. I met Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh for many, many times. I interviewed him. I was the first journalist interviewed Ismail Haniyeh in 1994 after Oslo Agreement, and after he won the election in 2006, he invited me to his house to give his first interview. And I know that we are not a friend, we are enemies, but was a channel between me to deliver something from Hamas to the Israeli government, to the Israeli making decision. And I couldn't imagine this guy now is a war criminal. I'm not sure he knew about the terror attack that Israel Sinwar and Muhammad Def, the head of the Hamas brigades. I'm not sure that he knew about the plan, but he's part of the movement. He's the leader of the movement. If you're a leader of the movement, you're part of the war crimes. And for me, Ismail Haniyeh, that I met many, many times, for me, is a criminal. And a war criminal must be handled to an international court in Hague.
Can you describe, we're talking about 1994, right, where you first meet Ismail Haniyeh. Can you, the head of the Hamas, or how do you, the political head of the Hamas, right?
And political head of Hamas. Now he's the political head of Hamas. I met him in 1994 after the Oslo Agreement. The group of the Hamas and Islamic Jihad were deported to Lebanon after a terror attack in Israel. And he returned back to Gaza in 1994. And someone of my colleague called me and said,
Shlomi, there's a problem with the sound. If you can try to be close to the microphone, just a little bit, so we can.
Closer to the microphone.
I hope it's better.
I'm trying. Okay, I'm sorry. Because if I would like to hear you, I have an earbud in my ear because I want to hear you. Because there is a wind here and rain here, and I'm
so it's not. We're not in the ideal conditions. So now I think now it's better. Yeah.
He called me in 1994 to his house after he came back from Hajj al-Zuhur in Lebanon. And the story was that I knocked on his door at a Shati refugees camp, and the door was closed. So I've been told that I have to wait here after we'll come from the Islamic University. And I saw a young child, I think about 7 or 10 years old, with green eyes. It's different in Gaza because, there is a mark. Ismail Haniyeh families, all of these families, they have green eyes. So it's something unique in Gaza Strip. And I think that I recognize and I assume that it's one of his child. And I asked him questions that journalists used to ask: "How are you? What are you doing here?" etc., etc. And he told me, when I grew up, I'll come to Israel and kill you all. And I was shocked because 9 years old.
Oh my God! And you're sitting there, right? You're sitting there on your own.
Yeah, with my cameraman, a Palestinian cameraman with my crew. And before he ended his words, I felt a hand on my shoulder, and I looked up, and it was Ismail Haniyeh. And he told me, "No, he's just a child. He doesn't know what he's speaking about." And he invited me to his house, the first meeting with Ismail Haniyeh, and he told me, "I have a message that I would like you to deliver to your government." Yitzhak Rabin was the prime minister. And because Hamas was a movement at that time, they were very weak because it's after Oslo Agreement, it's after the deportation to the Hajj al-Zuhur in Lebanon. And he told me, we are planning to be part of the political game. I would like to send a message to your prime minister we're ready to hudna, a ceasefire for 25 years with three conditions. You have to give us Jerusalem, it's an Islamic capital, to release all the Palestinian prisoners from the Israeli jail, and withdraw to 67 border. And it sounds very strange.
I just want to put some context. We're talking about 94. This is before Rabin's murder, assassination, and this is kind of the times of optimism, right? There seems to be like a peace with Palestinians, and you're probably thinking these guys are joking, right?
Yes, I thought it's joking because I knew that Israel would not withdraw to 67 border, not because Hamas feel they are a terror organization. And I delivered the message by the TV, and then I forgot from him. But I followed the Hamas movement for many, many years. I followed the election, and to make the story short, in 2006, before I have to say something. In 2005, the Gilad Shalit, the Israeli soldier, was kidnapped in Israel from the Israeli border and was a prisoner in Hamas, and it was very shocked the Israelis. In 2006, Hamas were elected. Ismail Haniyeh was elected to be the prime minister. And I came again to his house a day after he won the election.
In Gaza.
In Gaza, of course, in Gaza. I knocked on his door. He slept. But one guy opened the door and recognized me and said, "You're Shlomi, you're Shlomo." They call me Shlomo, not Shlomi. And I said, "Well, who are you?" And he said, "Don't you remember me?" And I said, "Oh, you're the young guy that I interviewed many, many years ago." He said, "Yes, you remember the child that I told you that I would like to be a suicide bomber and kill many, many Israelis?" And I said, "Yes, here you are." And what happened from that time until now? And he said, we were grouped up. Now we have a brain. We understand. And 1 year later, in 2007, we have to remember, Hamas committed a military coup. They deported the Palestinian Authority from Gaza Strip. They murdered their brothers. They shot them in the back. They shot them in the knees. They dropped them from a high building. And all the time when you're asking the Palestinians, the PLO Palestinians that living in the West Bank, and they told me, they're still telling me, we had an experience with them. You've never learned something about Hamas. And I all the time said, no, it's a different time because Hamas really want to govern Gaza and give a relief to the people in Gaza. One more thing that we have to understand, Hamas founded in 1988 by Sheikh Ahmed Yassin as a welfare organization that supported people like mobs, peace gardens, schools. This is the real Hamas. Years later,
we have some communication problem. Yeah,
the military wing took the power over the Hamas movement, and all the time I've been asked, so can you explain us what happened in October 2023? And I think that I can answer there are two factors. One of the name that his name is Yahya Sinwar. Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas now in Gaza. He was released in 2011 in Gilad Shalit prisoner exchange.
All right, so Shlomi, let me stop you here for a second, just to kind of give some order of events to our listeners. In 2005, Israel decided to disengage unilaterally from Gaza, basically taking out all Israeli forces and end the occupation over Gaza in the sense of Israeli presence and Israeli settlements in Gaza. A year after that, in 2006, there were elections, which were the last elections in Gaza, when Hamas was favored or overcame the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the Fatah, and came to power, right?
And came to power, not the presidency, but the Palestinian parliament.
To the parliament. And then in 2007, they forced their power on Gaza and basically ended any kind of even seemingly democratic government in Gaza. And since then, it's basically a dictatorship of a terror organization.
It's a dictatorship, Islamic dictatorship, fundamentalistic dictatorship in Gaza Strip. And after the military coup they committed in Gaza Strip, Israel started the blockade of Gaza. The blockade of Gaza starts in 2007 until today. So
and can I ask you? Okay, sorry for interrupting you, but I want to.
I would like to complete just one sentence, please.
Yes.
And over time, Hamas blamed Israel that they prevented them the food, electricity, and everything. But all these years, since 2007 until now, they took all the money that they've gotten from Iran, billions of dollars, and never invested even $1 for the citizens of Gaza. They took the billions of dollars, built an army and tunnels. Today, we're talking about upstairs Gaza and downstairs Gaza. Tunnels in Gaza, billions of dollars. The food of Gaza is in the tunnels, under the earth, and the upper Gaza are poor people, 2 million people suffering from Hamas regime.
So I want to ask you about Hamas. Basically, can you describe their ideology? Is it a Palestinian nationalism? Is it Islamic ideology? Is it something in between?
It's in between. Sheikh Ahmad Yassin, who founded the Hamas movement, he was one. He called his movement Islamic Brotherhood, the Palestinian branch. He was studies in Egypt, and he was so impressed from the Islamic Brotherhood in Egypt. He came back to Gaza Strip and believed that he can develop a movement like influences from the Islamic Brotherhood. But there is a mixture because the Islamic brothers in Egypt, they're a topic dream about converting all the people in the world to be Islamics and converted all the people in the world to be Islamic, very fundamentalistic Islamic people. But in Gaza Strip, they have also a mixture of nationalism because where I over time saw that there is a race between the PLO and Hamas movement. All the time a race who will govern the Palestinian authorities in the West Bank, in the Gaza Strip. So all the time, since the first Intifada in 1987, until today, it was a race between them who will take control over the Palestinians over the years. So it's a mixture of Islamic fundamentalistic movement, influencing by the Islamic Brotherhood in Egypt or all over the world, the Islamic world, and a mixture of nationalism for the Palestinian future.
And the source of kind of the radical point of view, the thought that, it is okay to sacrifice the residents of Gaza and it's okay to barbarically murder babies and women on the other side. This radical point of view, where does this come from? Can you understand?
Yes, I think that I started to understand after I started to research it, because you mentioned my book, Getting to Know Hamas, and now I have a new version of this book.
Right.
I added 3 chapters, and it's not Getting to Know Hamas, it's Hamas from I try to translate to English, from welfare organization to war crimes.
From welfare organization to war crimes. That's probably going to be on
Yes.
Amazon pretty soon, right?
Yes, after I finish it. And I started to research what happened to Hamas. And I discovered two factors that changed Hamas forever. One of it, the name is Yahya Sinwar. Yahya Sinwar, he was arrested in 1988. He murdered Palestinians that he was suspecting them to be collaborating with Israel. He tortured them. He butchered them. He murdered them. He was arrested in 1989 and sentenced
by Israel.
By Israel, of course, and sentences for four, four life in prison in the Israeli prison. And when Gilad Shalit deals prisoner exchange was on the table, his name was on the top because no one thought that this guy who just killed Palestinian is not a big terrorist. He just Yahya Sinwar, a man who killed Palestinians, and we can put him in the list Israel released. Israel released in 2011 in Gilad Shalit prisoner exchange more than 1,000 prisoners. Most of them were with blood on their hands.
So let me give context here for those who are not aware. Gilad Shalit was, Shlomi, can you take off the umbrella because we can hardly see you? Yeah. Sorry, I know you're
I try to protect my computer, my laptop.
Okay, yeah, I know. This is kind of, conditions of being outside there. Gilad Shalit was an Israeli soldier that was kidnapped by the Hamas, and there was a strong public pressure in Israel to return Gilad Shalit. There was an ongoing campaign by his family and other Israelis because in Israel, every soldier counts. And eventually in 2011, right, Israel signed a deal that was very controversial of setting free 1,000 Hamas prisoners in return for this one Israeli soldier, Gilad Shalit, which of course was a cathartic moment for Israelis. But looking back, do you think the Gilad Shalit deal was a mistake? Did you think back then it was a mistake?
Of course. If not Yahya Sinwar, I don't think that we are here now talking about October 7th.
Right.
When Yahya Sinwar came back to Gaza Strip, all the prisoners were in a bus. He just came out from a bus and a black Mercedes took him to Gaza Strip. He was pointed as the next leader of Hamas, and he was a crewman. He was a crewman even inside the Israeli prison. He murdered Palestinian prisoners in the Israeli prison. He was a crewman. And one man, it was the head of the intelligence in the prison service, which I just interviewed a few weeks ago. He told me everyone must know who was Yahya Sinwar. I tried to siren everyone, tell them this man will take Hamas to an evil way. But no one listened to him because he was in the Israeli prison service and the Shabak, the internal security, thought that they know more about him. And when they started to list the prisoners who were supposed to be released by Israel, he was not so important. But still,
yeah, we have somewhat disconnection.
No, that everybody in Gaza Strip.
Yeah, we have some disconnection with you.
And started to plan. Can you hear me?
Shlomi, there's some disconnection, so I'll just use the time until you come back to say that we'll open for Q&A pretty soon. So you're welcome to put your questions in the Q&A and I'll either let you ask questions or I'll read your questions. But this is a good time to start putting your questions. I see already some of them in the Q&A. Shlomi, I think we're back to you.
Yes.
So yeah, there are
Yes,
some connections.
and in 2011, he started to plan his terror attack in Israel because the next day after he returned to Gaza, he was in a huge demonstration in Gaza Strip.
Yahya Sinwar.
Yahya Sinwar gave a speech, and he said, the mission did not end. We have a mission, and our mission to release my friend who were back in the Israeli prisons. And he named two names. One of it, Hassan Salameh. It was he murdered 46 Israelis during the second Intifada, and one name, and Imad Issa, one of the most cruel terrorists in Hamas. And he
And
promised them.
why these two guys? Because they are his allies in the organization.
They're his allies. They were his friend in the prison, and he's a and I think that Yahya Sinwar, I can say it simply, is a lunatic man. And he came back to Gaza and started to plan the attack. One more factor that I've been learned now, that since 2007, the new generation in Gaza, after the military coup in Gaza Strip, they were in 2007 about 6 or 7 or 10 years old, and they grew up with a wash branding that Hamas entered to their brain. The wash branding that they flood their heads all the years. And they didn't see the Israelis as human beings. They saw them like the Nazis' propaganda, like Goebbels' propaganda. And I told you before that I've never used in my career, never used something comparing to the Holocaust. But the same propaganda that the Nazis in Germany went through, the same propaganda the Palestinian, the new generation went through with washing burning in Gaza Strip. So this is the
happening? Is this happening in schools or in mosques, or where is
in schools, in mosques, in the Hamas television, in all the media that they have there, especially at the mosque. So this is the wash branding, and I think that all the time we talked about brainwashing, washing branding.
Yeah,
we all the time talking about the Israeli all the time.
Fine.
So all the time we're talking about two factors: Yahya Sinwar and the new generation. And I think this is the two factors that can explain for me and for everyone what happened to Hamas in October 7th, 2023.
And I want to take you from here actually to talk, because we've been talking about the Hamas, but I want to talk about the Palestinians in Gaza, the 2 million Palestinians, because they're actually, and this is one of the questions, they're not entirely the same. You've been to Gaza so many times. I think you're one of the Israelis who knows Gaza really well. Correct me if I'm wrong. You have friends in Gaza, right? And let's start with, do you have any conversations with your friends in Gaza since October 7th? And what do you hear from them?
Yes, I have friends in Gaza Strip. And the picture they are painting for me, it's very difficult. It's a worst situation for them. And one of my friends, I talked to him today. He was the director of the checkpoint between Israel and Gaza before the military coup. He lives now in Jericho. And he called me today and told me, 26 family members of mine were killed in Gaza today. 26 Palestinians. And I have many, many friends who lost their families. And I asked them, who are you blaming with this situation? And they said, they told me, we know that Hamas did an awful things, but we are citizens. We are ordinary people that just want to live. And I think they understand that Israel had mission to end before, to eliminate Hamas. But everyone, think about himself, his family. There are most of them now in the south of Gaza, waiting after the war will ended. But all the time they keep asking me when the war will ended, and I keep telling them until Hamas will will eliminated by the Israeli idea.
And so do you think, like, if you can kind of sense some of the spirit, would you say that there are many Palestinians in Gaza who actually support the Hamas, identify and willing to sacrifice the suffering that they go through and the death? Or is it most of them are kind of actually maybe secretly objecting the Hamas?
Secretly, objectively, because in Arab Spring in 2011, 12, they tried to demonstrate against Hamas. And you know what Hamas did? They killed many of them, tortured them, or imprisoned them. So they're afraid. They're afraid to talk about nothing negative about Hamas. And I think now, the first time that I saw a kind of demonstration against Hamas, they curses Hamas, or they, especially Khaled Mashal, one of the top leaders of Hamas, they blame him. You are living in excellent hotel, executive hotel, and now we are living here in Gaza Strip, waiting to our death. So I think that I can recognize many, many Palestinians in Gaza Strip suffering, but they can point who to blame about their situation. I can tell you more than that. If an election were been taken before the what we call the Black Saturday, before October 7th, I can assure you that Hamas will not can be win in this election because they're suffering. They're suffering since 2007. They're suffering since this Hamas were elected and took the Palestinian 100 years back. So I know that there are many, many supporters in Gaza Strip, but most of them against the Hamas action in Gaza Strip.
Shlomi, so you're describing really an organization in which the military arm is stronger than the political arm and basically operating almost independently. You believe that the political arm of the Hamas and maybe also Iran, who is sponsoring Hamas and supporting it, did not know of Yahya Sinwar plans to this massacre?
I don't know about Iran. I'm not sure that Iran know or didn't know. But I know I can tell you that for sure, from my experience, that Ismail Haniyeh and also Khaled Mashal and the others leaders of living in Qatar in Doha, Yahya Sinwar didn't tell them anything. He did it secretly. And I can tell you more than that. I have one of my sources in Cairo trying to deal with Hamas leaders there in Doha, and he told me, one of my sources told me just today that they trying to call Yahya Sinwar and try to negotiate about the hostages, and he keeping telling them, it's not your business. Go away. It's not your business. So
Yahya
it's a
Sinwar.
military group, Yahya Sinwar. So what I can recognize now in Gaza, it's a kind of, again, a second military coup in Gaza Strip. Yahya Sinwar against the political echelon in Gaza, the military wing. But still, what I said before, I know that, one more thing that I have to add. All the time, in all my experience in Gaza Strip, I saw something that's very strange. The military coup committed something like a terror attack against Israel, even if the political wing didn't allow it or against this action, but all the time they stood behind them. All the time. I don't know if they were afraid from the military coup or something else. But they all the time try to show that we are like a family. We are a strong organization.
United.
We're united organization. And again, here, even they know They know for exactly that Israel destroyed Gaza Strip and most of the citizens of Gaza Strip will suffer from this terror attack in Israel. They support Yahya Sinwar. So this Sinwar take this movement to an evil way that I don't know if Gaza will recover soon.
All right. So before we open for questions, I just want to ask you if you can update anything, the best of your knowledge about the situation with the hostages. Israel has almost 240, probably less, hostages held in the hands of the Hamas in Gaza. Among them children, babies, women, some foreign citizens from other countries. And there are negotiations to make a deal and release them. What do we know about their situation?
There are reports from Doha, from the Qatarian, and I heard today Joe Biden said that he believes that soon that the hostages will come back to Israel. I must tell you that I'm not so optimistic about it. I think that Yahya Sinwar is playing a game with the Qatarian and with the American. I don't have any information about it, but I talked with the top Israeli leader in Israel, the security leaders of Hamas, the security leaders and the internal security echelon, and I share with them the same opinion. I don't really believe that the deal with Yahya Sinwar is closed. I hope I'm wrong, but I
Do you
don't
think all
really
the
think that
hostages
I
are?
believe that.
Yeah. Do you think the hostages are all in the hands of the Hamas, or maybe?
No. The problem, they're not always with Hamas, they're Islamic Jihad, and also by ordinary families that kidnapping hostages from Israel. Families that took them from Israel, kidnapped them because they thought that they can sell them to the Hamas or to any other organization. This is the most problem of us. We have hostages not in one organization, they are separate. And I'm not sure, I really tell you, and I'm sorry to tell it, but I'm not sure that all of them are alive.
All right. So let me take some questions here. Okay. We didn't even start talking about Precious Life. You're wonderful because we have so many things to talk about. So here's a question. They didn't say who it is.
Before, I can tell you about the babies from Precious Life.
Yes.
I called this family a week later, and I must say, because I was so sad and was in my sorrow, in my pain about the mourning, about the situation, the massacres, and it took me almost a week to try to find them. And
it's Raida, and how old is Muhammad today?
15 years old. And the anonymous father who donated the money to save the baby called Dr. Rassomer and asked him about the baby, the family. And he asked him, tell Shlomi to call to find the family. He wants to know what happened to them. I tried to the first day, the second day, after a week, I succeeded to call them, succeeded to find them, and they told me they are in Khan Yunis,
which is in the southern part of Gaza.
South of Gaza, away from the war now, and they are hiding in a school. But I think 2 or 3 weeks from that conversation, I couldn't find them anymore because the communication with Gaza is very bad.
Did you get to speak to Muhammad or Raida, his mother?
No, I talked to the father, to only the father, the Pozez.
Right.
And he told me that I tried to speak to Muhammad, and he told me he's not here now. He went to find the food. He took his daughter, he took his sister with him, and they are moving to another village there to try to find a food, a bread. So
this
it's a
is
sad
just to
story.
reflect on the very difficult situation of the people in Gaza. And this leads me to the question by Anna Arbel. She says, with all your incredible experience, how do you see the possibilities for the future? Besides eliminating Hamas, you have all the people in Gaza and so much pain and suffering. So is there a positive way forward for the people in Gaza?
Unfortunately, I can't see any positive way for people in Gaza. I've been asked by many experts what I thinking who can take control in Gaza. I don't think that Mahmoud Abbas, the PA, can return back to Gaza. I have one idea. Um, it's saving control by a committee that be committed by be planned by people of Gaza, the rich men of Gaza that can took the citizen. They are out of Hamas, out of any political group. They can build a front, helping front that can help the people in Gaza to recover and help to Gaza Strip to be established again by ordinary people, not by Hamas, not by Islamic group, not by PA, not by any other political group.
So do you think there are resources inside Gaza, like an elite that could become the leadership, like a better leadership for Gaza?
Yes, this is the only situation that I can imagine for myself. Other way, Israel must they stay there and capture Gaza uh, again. So we don't want it, but something must be happen there. And I don't know how can Gaza can be recover because we are talking now about 2 million refugees. Israel, Gaza were destroyed. No houses, almost no houses anymore in the north of Gaza. All the houses were destroyed.
You're talking, Shlomi, you're talking about 2 million refugees. Does that mean that you see all the residents of Gaza as refugees right now?
They are now. We are counting now 1.5 million refugees in the south of Gaza. They were moved from the north to the south.
Right.
They moved because Israel forced them to move because we didn't want to target citizens. We wanted to finish our count with the Hamas, the fight. It's very difficult to fight the Hamas in a very crowded houses, in a very crowded city, when they are using the houses and the citizens as human shields. So the one idea was to ask them to move from this north to the south, where we don't have any other choice. And all the time I've been asked by people, I've been asked by, for example, by CNN or by BBC that interviewed me, and I gave an example. I told the interviewer, let us think if a gangster came to your house and in one hand is handling a machine gun, and on the other hand is handling a baby. What will you do? Because they're blaming Israel that we are harming civilians. We are not
Right.
harming, we're not targeting civilians. We just try to protect ourselves.
Here's another question from somebody anonymous. Can Israel get rid of Sinwar, Yahya Sinwar? And if so, who would govern Gaza and what would be the consequences, better or worse? So let's focus on the question of where is Yahya Sinwar now, you assume, and can Israel get rid of Sinwar?
It's not $1 million question. It's a $1 billion question. Yahya Sinwar, for I can imagine, is hiding in one of the tunnels in Gaza Strip. They built many tunnels in Gaza Strip. I said before, we have downstairs and upstairs Gaza. But I can tell you I'm absolutely sure Israel will not end the operation before Yahya Sinwar Israel will put hand on Sinwar. He will be caught. I'm sure of it. And I don't know if we can caught him alive or dead, but Yahya Sinwar will be caught by Israelis.
Do we know if he's in Gaza?
I'm sure he's in Gaza.
You're sure he's...
he will not leaving, he was not leaving Gaza because he thinks that he's a kind of martyr. He is kind of believing that, the term of Shahada. The Shahada is, the death for the gods. And they can sacrifice themselves in the name of the God. And I don't think he leaves Gaza. He's still in Gaza, and he will fight under the end. But Israel will cut him.
Okay, I'll take another question, and if anybody wants to ask a question in their voice, I can open it. You just need to give me a signal, and I'll open it for question. Here's a question from James K. Israel seems unwilling to even consider having some degree of responsibility for the horror that the Palestinians face every day.
I hope not. I hope that Israel can find a way not to control Gaza anymore, because I think that the international community forgot that Gaza Strip is also a border with Egypt. I've heard the head of the internal security, the senior internal security, Nadav Argaman, and he said when he was interviewed in Israeli channel TV, he said, never again. We'll never open the border between Gaza and Israel. We'll never we'll never supply anything to Gaza Strip, because now it's the time to disconnect it with Gaza. And I support this idea, because after the massacres in Gaza, we can't. Never again.
I assume that James' question refers really to the occupation of the West Bank, to the settlements, and probably the question was, is not Israel responsible for all this, probably hostility from the Palestinians and the situation of Gaza and the West Bank?
We're talking about Gaza Strip. I would like to be focused on Gaza, only in Gaza, not on the West Bank. And the West Bank is a different story. We're not starting now because we have time until, I don't know if we have time until tomorrow. Yeah. I can start with the West Bank. Let's focus on Gaza Strip. Let's focus on Gaza Strip. Israel will go from Gaza Strip in 2000. No, I will just finish one sentence. Israel will withdraw from Gaza Strip in 2005. Hamas took control in Gaza in 2007. Hamas took the money, all the billions of dollars, invested in Gaza Strip, in the tunnels. And one of the leaders of Hamas, Musa Abu Marzouk, was interviewed 2 weeks ago. And he's been asked about the tunnels. And this answer was astonishing. He said, the tunnels for the leadership of Gaza, it's our tunnels. And now what about the citizens? He's been asked. And he said, the UN and Israel must take control over the Palestinians, the civilians in Gaza. So this is the thinking of the Hamas leadership. We are top of the people, and I remind you, Hamas was founded as a welfare organization, and they forgot the mission. They forgot everything that Hamas was built in the way. So this is Hamas, this is Gaza, and they want the UN took responsibility, and Israel take the responsibility of the civilians in Gaza, about 2 million people.
I want to go back. That will be probably almost our last question. And if anybody wants to ask a question with their own voice, just post it on the Q&A and I can open the mic for you. But here's a question about Precious Life, which I want to tell you, thank you for making this film, because it's such a wonderful and moving film, which really shows the complexity of the relations and interdependency between Gaza and Israel. And I think that in that film, we saw how you, again, shift from the person who's just reporting to somebody who is involved in a situation and really trying to save a baby's life, right? And here's a question: how have your feelings evolved from when you helped the baby and now? Would you do it again?
Of course. It's a matter of life. It's a life or death, because I knew that I'm not only director, I'm not a reporter. I must do something to save the baby, and only me could save the baby in these days. I brought the blood test from Gaza Strip. Nobody else could do it. So I decided that I'm a director, but I can help to save the baby. I can do it again and again and again. This is my duty as a human being, not as a director, not a filmmaker. I think everybody must help human being to be saved.
Talking about saving life, and that's going to be our last question, because we're all following the situation with the hostages, which is nerve-wracking, and for sure for Israelis, but I think everyone that follows the situation and the signs, whether they're alive or not, who's holding them, what's their situation. So Calvin is asking, do you think it is a better idea for Israel to pause fighting for a few days to allow hostages to exit Gaza rather than having a full permanent ceasefire?
I don't think that Hamas will release everyone, all the hostages. I think that if could be a deal, a small deal, and I'm doubted it, but if it will be a small deal and it's a ceasefire for 5 days, and it gives them time to take a power again in Gaza Strip and to find a way to fight again against the Israelis. I think that Yahya Sinwar, as I said before, is not planning to release all the hostages. Otherwise, he's a foolish man, because this is the security, this is the guarantee for him to be safe in Gaza and to force the Israeli to withdraw from Gaza. But it's a bad situation. It's a complicated situation. And I think, as I said before, I think Yahya Sinwar is planning a dirty game with the Israelis, with the hostages. And one of my sources said, I doubt if the Qatarian understand or the American understand who are they dealing with. So I said I'm pessimistic about releasing the hostages now, but I wish I'm wrong.
Right. Shlomi, I could talk to you for another 2 hours, to be honest, but I know that you're at the end of the day and you're really tired. There are so many good questions here that I don't, that I feel like, we're missing this question and this question. So first I want to thank everyone who posted their questions, and apologies for those that were not read. It's 10 o'clock now in Israel. I see that you're looking at your phone because probably you're getting messages.
I'm looking at the phone because my cameraman is under the rain. But okay, I can take one more question.
Can we take one more question? Okay, let's do that. Let me take a question. Okay, one question by Donna Malamud is: what is the best way for us to help both the Israel and outside of Israel in the U.S.? Let me take another question, because that's helping is not so much your territory, but the human.
By helping, yes, we can support the IDF now, because we are now in a big situation. The public opinion outside Israel, they are telling me all the time, you're killing. They forgot what's happening in Israel. To support Israel now, it's a very good helping.
All right, I'll ask another question, because it's not our role to kind of recruit anyone to any side. But the UN Shield's justification for bombing civilian sites in Gaza is not resonating with many Western observers. Do you have any thoughts on this? And is it an appropriate justification for the violence? Basically asking, well, we understand that the situation for Israel is a difficult one, but does that justify the bombing and destruction of Gaza and so many lives of civilians in Gaza, right, who cannot protect themselves? All right, we're stuck with it. Yeah. Shlomi, did you hear my question?
No, I didn't hear it.
So the question is really about Israel's decision to invade Gaza and bomb Gaza, and kind of saying, well, they use civilians as human shields, and we have to go after the Hamas. But the person who's asking is wondering if this is justified. Because for Western observers, this seems to be very cruel that so many people in Gaza die under the attacks of the IDF and Israeli Air Force because Israel is after the Hamas.
So what is our possibility to give Hamas still control in Gaza Strip and do it again? I think every country, every state will do the same. If a terrorist came to your house, if a terrorist came to your land, if you're a terrorist attacking your country, you do the same. I just remind you, and I think it's the similarity we're being compared now about about September 11. What the American did, the American invade Afghanistan, try to find Bin Laden. We are trying now to find Yahya Sinwar. For us, Yahya Sinwar is the American, what Bin Laden means to the Americans. We have a choice, or to give them to control Gaza Strip and make it again, or to find out how to eliminate Hamas. And to eliminate Hamas, there is unfortunately civilians be harmed, and the civilians took control, took as hostages by the Hamas also. The Palestinians are hostages also by Hamas. They are victims. That's why Israel asking them to move to the south, not to be involved in the war in the north of Gaza. We are doing the best. We are out of the way, not targeting civilians. And over time, all the Israeli operation in Gaza Strip, all my life, in the cast lead and in the pillar of cloud, and every military that was in Gaza Strip, I all the time counted the killing of the civilians in Gaza Strip. And now I'm just blaming the Hamas. I'm telling my friends in Gaza Strip, who you are to blame now? And they're telling me, yes, we know, it's Hamas. But all the time they keep telling me, but we are didn't do anything. We are just ordinary people that want to live. But we also want to live. We also want to prevent any terror attacks against Israel again.
Shlomi Eldar, I want to thank you so much for this very interesting conversation and giving us the time, in the midst of war and covering war. And can I wish you to be unemployed? Can I wish you to be just, not covering any more of this horrible, horrible tragedy of people, being murdered on one side and then being, bombarded on the other side, finding their death in other circumstances. And it's just really, we're talking in a sad moment, and I do hope to host you again in just better times, right?
Yes, I prefer to stay a filmmaker, to make films. That's what I love more than covering a war.
Yeah. All right. So just let's wish better times for all. I want to mention that we're going to have. Yeah.
I just want to say something more, that in my all interviews, I just ended it with one sentence that I borrow from, the freedom of life. It's we shall overcome. And all the Israelis now are very sad. You can saw people are crying, simple crying at the bus, at the car, all the time crying. They're seeing the hostages babies in Gaza Strip. And I all the time keep telling them, we shall overcome. And I must say it again, we shall overcome.
Thank you so much, Shlomi Eldar. We're going to
Right.
have another event next Wednesday. We'll send more information about it. This is going to be a conversation, maybe with some more optimistic tone about coexistence of Jews and Arabs in Israel. That's going to be on Wednesday with filmmaker Iris Zaki about her film Women in Sync. Thank you again, Jackie Schmidt, for coordinating and preparing this event. Thank you, Dr. David Graysbord, the director of the center. And thank you all for joining us today.